So, welcome back once again. So, today we are going to continue, I think, with what we were doing the other day. Sorry about yesterday. I was a little bit held up. I couldn't make it. But today, we're just going to continue from where we left the other day. So, today, I think I was not quite clear when I was working on the CSS component. Styling the finance tracker. So I was not quite clear when it comes to the styling with CSS. So today, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a recap of what uh, was supposed to be done during that session. Then today, I think I'll try my best to go step by step, slowly, so that we're able to understand what how we are going to style our finance tracker. Okay, so I'll try my best a little bit slowly, so that we see um, each each styling component is actually how each styling component is actually affecting the entire uh, how it's affecting the our web application. Okay, so that's what I will be doing today. So just as a recap, let me try. Let me let me first show you what will be the final product. This is the final product and how it will be. So, so this is the final result of the final web application that we will be designing. So it's a personal finance tracker with these cards. As you can see, there's some styling for these cards. Then this form where you have to fill to add a transaction, and all transactions will be displayed on this section here. So, for example, if I add, uh, let's say, a transaction, just use the same one, shopping. Okay, then let's say $10. The category, this will be, I will use shopping. Then for the type, this is an expense. Then the dates today. Then you can add the transaction. So this is how it will be working. So you fill the form based on the details, and all that information will be captured in the recent transaction, and then you can filter if it's income or if it's an expense. Okay. If it's an income, let's say this is a salary. Let's say you are earning $1,000 per week. Okay. Then category, this will be salary. Type this an income. Then we just say the date again. So you can see this is your salary, and this is an income. Okay. So once you fill the income, it gets captured on your total income card. Then the total balance after subtracting the expenses. Okay. So this is the total balance remaining after the expense. This is the total income. This is the expenses. Okay. So this is how our personal finance tracker will be working. So this is the basic working of this application. So as you have been joining me, I've been working on these small projects so that I'm able to improve my uh, front end side of things. Because in most cases, I only work on the backend. Say a backend engineer, okay, but I want to also learn a little bit of the web development. Then to be specific, I don't want to dive deeper into web development, because there's one thing that I've come to realize. In most cases, what I usually build are the knowledge systems, RAG systems, systems that actually are able to retrieve data information to be used to make decisions. Okay, so I've been building RAG systems using embedding models, RAG systems, knowledge graphs, and all that. Okay, but there's one thing that this one thing that I learned is that how can I or how can we build these knowledge systems and embed them within web applications? Okay, so if I have an e-commerce platform, for example, let me use an e-commerce platform. So if I have an e-commerce platform, then I can include a chat element where users can just ask for a product immediately. I want a brown chair, okay, brown sofa, something like that, leather sofa, black leather sofa, okay. Then instead of then you can now embed agents into your website, okay. Those agents will actually do the search for you and display the different types of product that you're actually requesting in that specific e-commerce website or e-commerce store for that matter. Okay, so I was thinking of how we can actually embed these AI agents into these platforms. And remember, in most cases, businesses they already have their websites already in place. So I was thinking of actually including this functionality into those websites. And to actually do that, you have to have an understanding of it. You have to have that understanding of how web applications actually work and how then it becomes easier for you to actually design those simple functionalities to actually embed in those websites. So that is what I'm actually looking at. Okay, and so that is why I'm pushing myself hard to learn a little bit of web development and how we can actually improve the functional. We can embed these the AI agents into these applications. Okay, so um, to be just just a small detour. Mm, so just a small detour. So just a small detour of how of let me take this out of why I'm actually interested in web development. Okay, and so by learning web development, that means that first, to me, I don't think okay. There are the large language models that we can actually use in our workflows. I often use them because they speed my process my uh, workflows. I'm able to build faster because I've embedded the large language models into my workflows. Okay, so there's one thing just telling a Bolt or Lovable to actually generate that website. Yes, it can generate a cool, sleek website. Um, how in whatever way, form, or structure you want your website to be, it can actually generate that. So, but the problem comes in when you want to now introduce new features, um, or maybe you want to merge it with a database and all that. So it still needs that human input, so that just to make sure everything is okay. So you can actually so with those tools, they can actually speed that development process. Okay, but you need to have the fine-grained knowledge, the nitty-gritties about web development and all that. So that's why I've actually tried my best to understand the basics, understand what web development is, so that whenever functionality you want to add to your website, then it becomes very easy. Becomes very easy because you understand, or even if you're working with the web development guys, you're able to understand their language. You're able to interact with them, understand what they want, how they want it. Okay, and so it becomes easier for me to actually do that. So um, uh, that's why I'll be doing this slowly. As you know, my intention is to React, Next.js. I think those are the frameworks that I really need to learn and understand better. But to get there, to get to that level of understanding, then it means that I have to start with the basics. As painful as it is, I just have to do it, the basics. Then constant with time, consistency, discipline, and all that, I think I'll be able to actually make it to that level. Okay, so enough said. Let's jump into what you're going to be doing today. So this is the CSS. This is the CSS, not CSS. This is the HTML that we did. So I'm just going to let me now expand this. Then this is my style.css. Then this is the one that we are going to use slowly by slowly. Let's start populating it slowly. So of course, I won't be going line by line because we're going to spend a lot of time. But for me, I'm just going to paste whatever is there. Then from there, we are going to try to explain a little bit of what is happening. Okay. So before we get started, so this is the so I can just comment this. Comment this. So before, this is our HTML, and it's by its at its default. So the first thing that we can do is to remove the default spacing. So we remove the default spacing using the universal selector. So I'm placing my margin to be 0, padding 0, and the box sizing to be border box. So with the box sizing as a border box, this means that we won't be able to increase the element width. That means the content, the padding, the margin will be distributed according to the spacing that we have provided. Okay, and so that's the universal selector. Then I'm going to use the CSS variables. I'll set all the CSS variables. These are the CSS variables. So how do we come up with these variables? So one thing that you need to understand is you first have to have that picture model of how your web application is going to look like. Okay? Once you have that in mind, then it becomes easier to understand, okay, I have these cards, I want this to be blue, green, or red. Then I want my buttons to be blue, red, whatever. Then I want, if it's expense, I want this. If it's expense, or if it's an income, I want it to be maybe have the green background, then for the amount to be shown in green. So once I have that in mind, then I can create the CSS variables, then specify what will be common within my web application. For example, the primary color that I'm going to use, if success color, let's say for the income and all that, you can see we are mostly using green. Danger color, expenses, and all that. Okay, so once you have that in mind, then it becomes easier to come up with your CSS variables. Okay, for the shadow depth, so you can see our cards do have shadows. So this is that. So instead of defining each card with the same type of shadow, I just group this into one. Then whenever you're applying the shadow, you can just call this. Okay. Then for the spacing, this is what I'm using. I'm using rems. Then for the round corners, again, this is what round corners. These are the border radius. Okay. So that is the CSS variables. Then the first thing is the body. So you're going to style the body. So as you can see, when it comes to the CSS, so when it comes to the CSS, you'll see that we are starting from the way before we style a specific component. So we start with the wider, on the outer edges, moving inward. Okay, so we start with the body. Then from the body, we start narrowing down to the smallest component, lack of better word. Okay, so this is the font family, the base body styles. So the font family you're going to use, the background color. So again, you can see for the background, we're just specifying this. So we want this to be a background color. If you want to have a change in mind, you can just alter this. Then you can see the background actually changes. Okay, so instead of course, you have many background colors. So instead of changing each and every one, you can just alter at your CSS variables, then everything will change with respect to the color that you have actually chosen. So I'll just go back. So this is for the body. Then from the body, we'll move to the container. So this is the container. So this is the main container. This, you can see that this is the main container. So the entire container, main container is everything belongs to the same container. So that's what you are targeting in this one. So I just go back. So this is the container. Just lift everything. Memory cards. This is the entire container. We have the entire container, and for the container, you can see one thing that has so we have updated the header, semantic HTML. So we have styled the header, then the cards themselves. Let's see what we have done. So for the container, this one centers and constrains the width. So that's what we are applying. So the max width is this. So remember, we used the border box, and we have provided the max width. So that means the padding, the margin, and the content will space according to our maximum width that we have actually provided. That means that we don't get too wide on a larger screen. So if we have a 50-inch screen, then we won't utilize the entire screen. So this is the maximum width that we can actually space our content within. Then we have the margin 0 auto, so that this one we're able to center it horizontally. Then the padding at the minimum height, so we're able to fill the entire viewport height. Then display flex. Then we stack the items vertically. Okay, so these are the cards, and what we are doing is that we are stacking them vertically. Okay, on the y-axis, if I'm not wrong. Vertical is the y-axis, horizontal is the x-axis. Then this is the header. So then we're just styling the header itself. Text align center, the margin bottom. Again, you can see we are using the CSS variables, which becomes easier. For us. So you can see, I can give you even an example. So this is the padding that we want, and then the padding that we are repeating the same padding. So remember, we could have typed the same padding. We could have used the same padding at this point and also the same padding at this point. But through the CSS variables, we're just passing in this variable, and then it's going to note the type of spacing that we are using. Then without so if we change this, let's change this to let's change this to 25 frames. Okay, so you can see how it looks like. So the padding. So then let's do 1.5. Then you can see everything just changes automatically without us changing each and every instance of that. So that's all about the header. Then this is the summary card. Then for the summary card, displays grid. Then this one we're able to auto-fit create the responsive columns with minimum of 25 pixels wide. Okay, so this is what we are doing. Then the individual card styling. So this one is for the entire cards, the all 3 cards. Then we need to style the individual cards. So this is the summary cards. Then the individual card styling. Then this one, the lift card slightly, so that when we hover around this card, you can see it's agitated towards the y direction. So even if we use the x direction, so you can see it's moving towards the left hand side. Okay, I don't know if there's a z axis. Yeah. So I think for the z axis, it's moving towards you. That's why it's not. Let's go to the y. Let's just use the y. Okay. Then the color coded borders for the different cards. So this one is for the income. You can see that we are using the success color if it's for the income, that is green, and this one color is coming from this one success color. You can see how we are doing that. Then each card has its own specific color: success, danger for the expenses. Then I think this order. This is the income expense. I think by default we're using the default color. Then for the income and expense, we're just changing that. Then the summary card. H2. So font size is the font size. Text transform is uppercase. So all of these will be total balance, total income, uppercases. Letter spacing. So these are for letter spacing. We are not using within the variables because maybe different. We want different spacing for different the different sections or the different components. That's why we're not using the spacing, but something that we consider to be default within the entire web application, we can just define that in our CSS variables. Okay, so that's all about the styling of this. Then let's move to the main content. Main content. This is the main content, and we are styling this form. Okay, I think I talked about form in one of the previous videos. So let's see about the main content, specifically the form. So the main content displays grid, then the grid template column. So this form smaller, then the transaction to be larger. So we didn't want to make this form and the transactions to be of the same size. That's why we are using this one 1, and then for the other ones we are spacing that using the 1.5. So this one specifies as a space separated track list line names. Okay, well, let's say, let me use if we use 2, you can see we are now increasing the form, which will be a little bit large than the section where we are actually displaying the recent transactions. Okay, so let me go back. One is okay. Then this is the gap. So there should be some gap between this. For the moment, let me use the cards between the add transaction and the recent transactions card. So there should be this gap, and this we specified this previously. Then the margin button, we specify that. And then the flex grow to be 1. So this one takes the remaining space. Then for the form section, so this is the form section of the add transactions. So we have input fields, description, amount, category, type, as well as the date. So the form section, this one is like the entire form sections, the styling of the entire form section. Then the form section, I think this one we are targeting the H2, heading 2. Then the container for each input field. So form group container for each input field. Then you have specified that. Then the label above each input. Then the red asterisk sign that we are using here. So this is the red asterisk sign. So you're using the color danger color. Then the margin left to be 2 pixels. Then the input and the drop down styling. So this one applies for these ones. So this one is a type of form, but we have already done a pre-selection for you. These are the only options that you're going to select. Then the height, border, and height. No, not the height. Highlight the border when the field is actually focused. So this one is for the form groups. You'll see there's some. Yeah, you can see there's this border that once we are selecting the input type, there's that blue color showing up. So for every input You can see that blue color. Okay, that is what we're using here. The red for the error messages. So if there's an error message, something, let's say it's a must that you fill this. Let's say if I try to add transaction without filling the required fields, then you can see this field is required, this field is required. So this one, the error message styling. So this one is what that controls that. Then we have the button. This is the button. So the button is so padding. This is the padding for that. Border none. Border radius. You can see that we have rounded corners. Then the font size, font weight, cursor. When you hover, it becomes a pointer. Then the transition, font family, user select none. So this one prevents text as selection when clicking. Okay, so when you click, it prevents text selection. Then for the primary button, when you are going to add the add transactions, so the width 100%, so that it occupies the entire width, allowable width for this. Then the color white for the text or the content, padding, and the font size. Okay, then we have the button primary. When you are hovering, you can see the colors changes a little bit. When the button active, so when you push the button when active, so you can see there is that slight agitation towards the y-axis. This is what we have here. Danger button when you want to delete. So if you want to delete this, then you can see I usually want to delete. So danger button when you want to delete, so you can see like the delete button. Then danger hover, so you can see this also when you're hovering. You can see this that also the slight agitation. So that's the add transaction. So let's move to the transaction section where we're able to visualize all our transactions. Transaction section, transaction list. So let's add that. So this one we are styling the recent transaction field. So this is the recent transaction field. Transaction list. So the transaction list. So when we add the transactions, this is how it's going to behave. So maybe I can just hit this. Close this. Then just split this. Then I can just okay. So this now we are at the recent transactions. This is a transaction. WebKit scroll styling. So the scrolling, if you have many transactions and you want to scroll, so the transaction list, then the transaction, each transaction item, we will specify that. The display flex, justify content, space between. So spread items across. Then align items at the center, and all that. Slide right. So when you hover, you can see we are now it's now on the x-axis. This one, and now it's tend to slides the x-axis. Then a green background for income. So you specify that. You can see this is the green for income, green. Then there's the red danger for the expense. Then the transaction text container. So grocery, then the date and the amount. So all that and the description itself. Category date now. So this is the date that we are also applying that. Amount display. So the amount that we're displaying. Transaction amount income, transaction amount expense, danger color, and all that. Then we have the footer, this one. Okay, so I think Then in terms of accessibility and how we are going to style, how it's going to be responsive on a different screen. So that's what we are adding lastly. So accessibility hides visually but keeps the screen when it renders. Then we have the animations, buttons, and all that. So the keyframes, animations, opacity, translate on the y-axis. So those are the different types of animations we're using. Also, when it comes to the responsive design, so for the tablet and all screen, I'm using a desktop. So tablet, then a mobile phone. Okay. So for the tablet, this is how we are defining that. So the maximum content. This one will stack form and transaction vertically. So transaction and when you add the transaction and the recent transaction details. So if you have, maybe you can just do the inspect. And I'll use, let me use this. Then maybe I can just close one of these. The views. Then you can inspect. Then responsive. So how is our design responsive? So this is how responsive the web application is. So if I'm going to my screen, if I'm going to reduce my screen, you can see how the items are actually fitting within this. So let me try, let's say you're using iPhone 14 Pro. So you can see how the items are actually stacked one on top of the other. So this is the responsive design. So this is what we're actually using. So this one you're using for the tablet. If you have a tablet, this one is for a small mobile phone for 80 pixels and below. So this is how these items will actually behave. Okay, so you can see now it's actually smooth with respect to Samsung Galaxy. This is for 12 iPhone. No, it's not a tablet. 7. Okay. But anyway, that's how we can actually. So when it comes to the CSS, we have now seen how we can integrate CSS into our workflow and design mostly styling. So CSS is all about. So CSS is all about styling. How are we going to style our applications with the color codes? How we organize our cards, different sections. Okay, so that's all about the CSS, and I think we've done a nice job on this. You can now see the progress that you have made from the HTML that we built up to this up to the styling. So I think tomorrow we are going to start on the JavaScript. So now we need to make our application. We need to make our application responsive to, I'll say, demands of the user. So whenever they are going to fill this form, we need to accept that data, manipulate that data accordingly, then display if it's an income, if it's an expense, or if it's a balance, if you have multiple transactions. Okay, so JavaScript, we're going to use JavaScript essentially for that, making our website responsive according to the user requirements. Okay, so I think with all that said, I think I'm going to stop at this point. Then once again, thank you for finding time to joining me on this task, and I'm very grateful for your time, for everything that you've put at hold just to join me on this. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, so that whenever we are meeting or whenever there's something important for you, then you can get the notification and join us on this. Okay. So with the discipline and consistency, I think we're going to make strides when it comes to web development. Okay. So we have our goal in mind. We have set our target, and so let's go for it. So that's it. Until next time, see you.